First of all, for just those of our visitors that are here, I just want to start off and begin and just say something that you should know about our church. Okay, this is what you need to know. Let me just share this: that we as a church, we believe that Jesus Christ physically, bodily rose from the dead on Easter Sunday morning. Amen? So this is not just a pin in our calendar. This is not something that, it's not just a holy day that we just mark because it's a part of the church calendar. No, this is something that we celebrate, and we are so excited that you are able to be here with us this morning. And so I want to begin and just share this, that the title of my message this morning is called Remember Me. Can you do me a favor? Can you say, Remember Me? Remember me. And I want to talk to you about remembering people. Okay, and so I say that because there's some stuff in the Easter narrative that has to do with memory that I want to touch on this morning. And so this is not going to be a lengthy sermon, but I want to begin by asking this question. And the question is, have you ever run into someone that you knew like 10 years ago, and you bump into that person, but you're not sure if it's that person because 10 years have passed by? Maybe you see this person in the post office, or you see this person at the mall or at the grocery store, and you see that person and you're like, is that him or is that her? I'm not really sure. Like, it looks like them. Wow, like he gained some weight, or she lost a few pounds, but it looks like that person, and it's just this awkward and weird moment when that happens. And then sometimes you see somebody from the past, and you know right away it's them, but you are not sure if that person knows that it is you. And so what do? What we do is we try to create like a touch point or a memory point in that moment. And you say something that, just to remind that person of this experience that you have had, just to trigger a memory in that person. And so you walk up to the person and you say something like, hey, do you remember that time we had English class together, or we went on that trip together, or, remember that thing that we did together? Do you remember me? And like, by the way, you should always do that, right? Like, if you bump into somebody and you're not sure who that person is, you should always create like a memorable touch point. Because even if they don't remember you, you've given them an out. And so they can kind of respond to you and say, oh, yeah, totally. Good to see you there, buddy. Right, it's so good. And, and they'll do that thing there. And if you haven't seen that person in years, and you bump into that person and you're not sure if it's them, and you're not sure if they know that it is you, it's just a little weird. It's just a little awkward. And so there are two places in our narrative this morning where memory comes into play. Okay, and the two places are, the first is at the scene that we sometimes refer to as the Last Supper. And the Last Supper is a scene that took place on Holy Thursday, or a Maundy Thursday on the church calendar. And so here we see that Jesus is with his apostles in a room that they rented to have their Passover meal, and they're getting done with the meal. And Jesus says some stuff there that, we repeat often. And at that time when Jesus said this, it was just very mysterious when he said this. And so Jesus has made this arcane reference to bread and wine representing his body and his blood. In fact, as we read today, he says, this is my body, this is my blood. And then he says, do this in remembrance of me. Remember me. And so the apostles are responding, and they're like, Jesus, remember me? What are you talking about, Jesus? Like, we see you every day. Okay, like, Jesus, we are connected to you. We are friends. Like, we have been trekking and sharing life with you for the past couple of years now. Like, we know you, Jesus. And so today, like, we read that and we understand now, like, what's going on. But back then, they didn't understand what was taking place. That Jesus was saying to them, I'm leaving. I am leaving, and this is going to be my last night on earth for a while, and there's going to be distance now between us. And I'm not going to be among you for a certain time. and then, you're not going to see me anymore, and then all of a sudden you're going to see me again. But between the now and the then, I want you to remember me. Remember me. So when I see you again, I don't want you to look at me when I see you again and say, yeah, is that him? I'm not really sure. Like, it looks like him, but I am not certain. And I don't want you to wonder if I am going to remember you as well. So what you're going to do is you're going to do this thing, and you're going to stay together. You're going to be mindful of me, and you are going to remember me, and this is how we are going to be connected. We're going to stay connected this way. And so the other narrative happens the very next day, the very next afternoon. It is the scene of the crucifixion. And here in the crucifixion narrative, we see Jesus is hanging with two other criminals. And one of the criminals looked to Jesus, and what does he say? He says, when you come to your kingdom, remember me. Remember me, Jesus. And it is curious to me, right? As I think about this, it's very curious to me that Thursday evening, Jesus is with his apostles. And what does Jesus say to them? Remember me. Here Friday afternoon, Jesus is now hanging on the cross. He's with this criminal. And what does the criminal say to him? Remember me. And I'm going to read this narrative. Thank you, Vanessa, for reading. We're going to read that again. Luke chapter 23, verses 39 to 43. This is what it says here. One of the criminals who were hanged railed at him, saying, "Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us." But the other rebuked him, saying, "Do not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation, and we indeed justly, for we are receiving the due reward of our deeds. But this man has done nothing wrong." And he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And he said to him, "Truly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise." So Jesus is here, Thursday. He tells his disciples, remember me. Here you have another scene. On Friday, the thief that is on the cross, he says to Jesus, remember me. Now, you don't have to work to remember somebody, right? Like, remember somebody that you're close with. Like, for instance, like when I see my wife, I don't go, is that her? I'm not really sure if that's her. I think that's her, right? I mean, if I spot my wife, I could see my wife through a crowd. I know where she is. I know how she looks. She's familiar to me. She is known to me, and I don't have to struggle to remember my wife. Same thing with my kids, right? When I come home at the end of the day from work and I see my kids don't rush to the living room and say, Daddy, do you remember me? It's me. Do you remember? It's been a while. And me saying, no, it's been a day, okay? I remember you. I know how you look like. You see, when you're connected to somebody and you see that person, you know that person, right? You know them. But when time goes by, though, memory fades. When time goes by, awkwardness enters the picture. And some of us have had that experience, right? I mean, some of us have had that experience. Like, have you ever had a friend who has kids? And it's been many years since you've seen your friend's kids. All of a sudden, it's been like 7 years, you bump into your friend's kids again, and you don't even know what to say. You're like, oh my God, you got so big. And it's just like, and if you're on the other receiving end of that conversation, like there's nothing worse when you're a kid and you have one of your parents' friends coming up to you and say, you know what, you don't remember me, but I remember you when you were a baby. And that kid just looks at you and the kid is like, this is awkward. Okay, so you're old. Like that's all you got for me? That's what you're going to say to me? Like, right? It's just awkward. And I've been in many of those situations before. And if you're a kid here and that has happened to you, I just want to say, if you're a kid here, I want to say, listen, the adult in that equation does not mean for it to be awkward. The adult is just freaked out because they don't remember you looking like that. And you obviously don't remember them at all. And so now distance has just created this memory lapse. And so Jesus is saying, I don't want there to be a memory lapse. I don't want you to worry. And the thief on the cross, he's worried. The thief on the cross is like, he's saying, when we come to your kingdom, Jesus, would you remember me? Are you going to remember me? And this interaction between the thieves, right? I mean, and we're not even sure if they're thieves because legend has it that they are thieves, but we're not sure why exactly these two are dying. But we know that these two are career criminals that are here. And so this one guy is here, and he's scoffing at Jesus. And he's just saying, so you're the Messiah, right? Okay, so if you're the Messiah, why don't you come down off of the cross, and why don't you save yourself, Mr. Messiah? And this other guy is next to him, and he's like, are you kidding me? I mean, you are minutes away from death right now, and you're going to die today, like literally in minutes, and you're scoffing at this guy? Like, even if there is a chance, if this man is who he says that he is, shouldn't you just be a little bit more polite to him? And the other guy, he's saying, listen, we both deserve to die. But this man, he hasn't done anything. He hasn't done anything. And then he says, when we come to your kingdom, will you remember me? And there's a little bit of this embedded worry that's here, right? A little bit of like, okay, so right now we are in this kingdom. Right now we're here, but we are about to die. And then, just in a few minutes now, we're going to die, and we're not going to be in this kingdom anymore. And as we leave this kingdom, we're going to be in your kingdom now. And so you're going to be at the center of this. Everything's going to revolve around you. There are going to be millions of people that are going to be coming near you, and a lot of people are going to be around you that you're going to have to handle, you're going to have to talk to, you're going to have to deal with, because you are the king. And what I want to know is, in that moment, am I going to be one face out of a million faces? Am I going to be that one face? Will you remember me? Will you know me in that moment, Jesus? Please tell me you're going to know me in that moment. Please tell me that I won't be I won't be faded in obscurity in that moment. I don't want that moment to be awkward, Jesus. Please, I want to know you, and I want you to know me. And Jesus says, today, you're going to be with me in paradise. Could we just pause for a moment right now and just ask this question? Let's take a time out from this narrative, just for a moment. And can we ask this question? And the question is this: why? Right? Like, why does this guy, why does he get to go to heaven? Like, how does that even work for this guy to go to heaven? What are the mechanics of this operation here? Like, how come Jesus gets to forgive this guy? Does this guy get a free pass? What, does Jesus have backstage passes to heaven? Like, he's the Son of God, right? So maybe he does. He's got a few of them. Like, is that how it works? Is that how it works? And I know some of you are here today, and you're very busy in life. You got so many things going on. Your lives are just full, and you don't really come to church that often. Today you're here because it's Easter, and I want to say, listen, we are so grateful that you're here on an Easter service. Thank you for being here. But you could probably admit to yourself and say, you know what? I don't really think about this God stuff that much. I don't ponder this God thing too much. And, and we get it. You're busy. You got a lot of things going on. But for one moment, if you could just think about it, if someone made you think about it, and said to you, who gets to go to heaven? Who gets to go to heaven? How would you respond, right? Many people would respond and they will say, good people. Good people go to heaven. So let me ask you a question. When you think about good people, do you conjure up in your mind death row inmates? Because this guy that is right next to Jesus, he is a death row inmate. This man is being executed for crimes that he has committed. And now he's guilty. And he's guilty, and he makes no pretense, though, of his guilt. He admits it. He literally says, hey, we deserve to die for these crimes. This man is on death row. He is not a good person. So get that image of this guy being a good person out of your mind. He's not a good person. I mean, I think we have this endearing place in our heart for this guy here because this guy speaks to Jesus. And while the other guy was making fun of Jesus, this guy sticks up for Jesus. And so we have this endearing place in our heart for this man. But he's a criminal. This guy is not a good person. Okay? And I don't know the reason why he's dying. I don't know the crimes that he's committed. We don't know what led him there to this place. But this man is admitting he's admitting that he deserves the punishment that he is getting. He admits that. And so what we could presume, right, is that this man has lived a pretty jacked up life. This guy has lived a messed up life. It's not a good life. So this guy is here, and this guy gets to go to heaven. This guy gets to go to heaven. What does Jesus say in verse 43? Jesus says this, and he said to him, truly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise. Jesus doesn't say, hey, I'm going to sneak you in the back door. Okay, when you get there, give me a call and I'll hook you up. I'll get you in there. No, Jesus doesn't say that. Jesus says that you are going to be with me in paradise. Now, I don't know about you, but when I think of the word paradise, I think of something tropical. Like that's where my mind goes to. I don't know where your mind goes to when you think of the word paradise. And we know the deal, right? We know the deal that it wouldn't be paradise if Jesus wasn't there. So Jesus is saying, with me in paradise, but Jesus could have as easily said, with me is paradise. And so, you're going to be with me then. And so the question is how, right? How does this deathbed confession after a life of evil and sin get this man access? You know why? Because it's not good people that go to heaven. It's forgiven people that go to heaven. And you can place your faith in Jesus at the very last minute of your life, and you can go to the same heaven that we're all going to go to. And it's not fair. Right? And many of us, we look at this doctrine here, we look at this criminal that is on the cross, and you know what we say? We say, man, that is not right. How does this guy go to heaven? That's not fair that this guy goes to heaven. And you know what? Let me respond to you, and let me say this. You are right. It is incredibly unfair. Incredibly unfair. And maybe you never heard it like this, and please forgive me if you get offended by this, but let me just say this. The gospel, this is what I think. The gospel is the most unfair thing in this world. Because it's unfair, though, in our favor. It's unfair in our favor. It's unfair in our favor because, think about it for a minute. Who gets to go to heaven? Who deserves to go to heaven? Anybody? Nobody. Nobody deserves to go to heaven. Nobody. Romans chapter 3, verse 23, it says this: we all have sinned and have fallen short of the glory of God. All of us. And here we are, right? We are in the in-between, and we're wondering, does God remember us? Does God remember us? And we're wondering if we even remember him. And for some of us, it's been a long time. It's been a long time since you connected to God. It's been a long time since you talked to God. It's been a while. And you're maybe here and you're wondering, you know what? It's because he's forgotten me. I mean, I don't even know if he remembers me. And some of us are here today, and maybe you're new to church, and maybe you don't ponder this stuff. And your whole take on God is, look, if God even exists, that's a big if he exists, if he is real, and you know what? He's just way too busy governing the universe to even look at little old me, to see me, to know me, to want to connect to me, to know my backstory. If God exists, God does not see me. God does not love me. So, since he doesn't, why should I even bother interacting with him? And that's where some of you are this morning. You're in that space right now. And if that is you, let me say this. I promise you that you do not know the ache of a parent to embrace his child. You do not know the heart of a father to embrace his child. Like if you've ever been estranged from your family before, if you ever spent some time in prison and it's been years since you saw your family, if you spent some time in the military and you've been overseas and you haven't seen your family in a while, if circumstances have conspired you to keep you separate from your family and your children have gone just years without seeing you, then you might know a little bit of what I'm talking about. You might get a small bit of a fraction of how God feels about you. That longing to reconnect with you. That longing to reconnect to his child. The longing in the heart of a parent to know their child and to embrace their child and to love their child. And this is what God feels about you. That's how God feels about you. Not only are you on God's radar, not only are you on his radar, but God sees you, and God knows you, and he remembers you, and God is waiting for you to remember him. To remember him. And it has been a long time, right? And you don't remember him. And once in a while, something good happens in your life. And once in a while, you kind of feel this nudge. And once in a while, you feel like God is whispering to you. And you think, is that God? I'm not really sure if that's God. It sounds like him, but man, it's been a while. God, is that you, God? Is that God? And God wants you to remember him. Others of you are here today, and you know that God sees you. You know that you are on God's radar. But you don't want to go near God because you feel like God is ticked off at you. Right? Some of you are here today, and you've been places. You have, done things. You have seen things. You have said some things that you just feel so ashamed of. And so you walked right through those doors, and you walked in here, and you came in here feeling so beat down. Beat up, beat down. You walked in here accused. And certain that only the thing that you're going to get here when you remember God and when God remembers you, the only thing you're going to get is anger. And you're going to get sorrow, and you're going to get condemnation. And so what do? You don't even talk to him because you think it's easy to stay away from him. And you don't remember him. And maybe you forgot. And maybe you don't remember today that he came not for the righteous, but he came for sinners. He came for sinners. He did not come to earth to live a sinless life and to die on the cross and to rise again just to give gold star stickers to all the holy Christian good people, right? Like he didn't come to earth to rise from the dead and affirm everyone with a Jesus sticker, Jesus fish sticker in the back of their car. Right? Those of you with it, it's cool. Don't no offense, but I say that to say my point is that Jesus did not come to earth to affirm all the holy people. Like if we were all holy people, then Jesus didn't need to come. Jesus comes to the earth not for the super Christian, but Jesus comes to the earth for the broken, for the needy, for the messed up, for the jacked up people in this world. And that's what this church is. And that is what his church is. It is a gathering of messed up, broken, fractured people. And this church, led by a pastor who is broken and a fractured pastor. And we can come together, all of whom find grace and forgiveness at the cross, because we remember him and he remembers us. And that's what we're here for today. You see, Easter isn't just Resurrection Day. Easter is Homecoming Day. So this morning, come home. Come home. Come home. Come home today. Don't spend another day just wondering, is that God? I'm not sure if that's God. I don't know. Don't spend another day laboring under the delusion that God has forgotten you, that God is angry at you, that God is pushing you away. You see, God's heart is to embrace you. It is to know you. It is to welcome you home. And that's why we celebrate that today. And listen, I love chocolate. I love me some chocolate. I'm all about that. And I'm all about a reason to get together and have a meal with family and friends. I'm all about that. But today is not about that. We are here because Jesus Christ resurrected from the dead. And in Jesus' resurrection, we find that our sins are forgiven. And when we come back to God, God doesn't look at us like, oh, I've forgotten you. Oh, I know what you did. No, God looks at us and he says, I remember you, and I know what you did, and it has all been paid for. Come home. Come home. Come home. Come home. That's Easter. That's why we celebrate. And that's why we are so excited.